Hey YouTubers. Okay, so here's that Volvo Penta 225. It had a crack in the side. You can see somebody tried puttying it, but it has cracks on the inside journals, and unfortunately, water's gotten inside the whole engine. Heads and everything might be done, might be good, but basically there's not, much left. So I took everything off of it. So now this is going to be converted from the 305 225. And we took everything off that we needed and put it onto this Crusader. So the Crusader is actually an inboard engine, 270 horse, quite a bit more horsepower, quite a bit more torque than the other one, which is going to be a great motor for this 22-foot boat that we're actually putting it in. The only real things that we had to modify was some real basic stuff. Everything bolted off of the 305 and bolted right on. You can see all the red parts bolted right onto the Chev 350. So this one's got the raw water pump actually on the harmonic balancer. That all bolted up. The manifolds bolted up. The housing for the thermostat, because the Crusader motor was actually had a heat exchanger on it, and so is now going to be completely raw water only. And that's why we changed the manifolds instead of using the manifolds that came with the Crusader. Because those ones were designed to have internal water and it would just be too much of a mess. But we did have to modify our sending unit for the thermostat, or not thermostat, but for water temperature. I had to put a sleeve on it. I'll show you another Crusader I have, but they, back when these Crusaders were made, they just used piping and everything else. So we cleaned all that up. Took the distributor, coil, carb, everything out the 305, put it on here. Now it is points and condenser. Once I get it into the boat and get it running, then basically I'll change it over to electronics to make it run and start a little bit better, not having to deal with points, especially around water and moisture. You don't want points and all that kind of stuff. Always make sure you put those gaskets inside these distributor caps just for that reason, if you do stick with the points and condenser. But yeah, even the oil pressure gauge all bolted on. The throttle housing all bolted right on, no problem. All the holes were there. The wiring for the Volvo actually bolted right on. I showed you that when taking out the 225. But the only modification we had, now the Crusaders had a transmission, which is right over here, bolted to the back, and the starter is actually coming into the back side of the transmission. And so that's how this Crusader used to get started. So we took the 305 starter out and we put it in, but there's these ribs right here on the oil pan, and then these studs are really long. I didn't have to do anything with the studs, but the rib, this is an aluminum pan, and so they put these ribs on for a little bit more structure, and it's kind of hard to see in there, but I had to grind on one because it's real tight to the oil pan. But I just ground it out a little bit so that we can fit the starter in. Now, I mean, if you got a little bit of money to burn, you could have gone and got a high torque starter, which is a lot smaller. In this case, I was kind of showing so that people, are saving money on marine instead of, going and spending a lot of money. I mean, the marine starter has all the gaskets in it, like right here on the solenoid. In a car, it doesn't have this gasket. That's how you can tell if it's a marine starter. That's the only difference between a car starter and the marine one, is this actual gaskets here. There's a gasket in here and a gasket back here, but that's pretty much it. There's no extra ground straps like every mechanic wants to tell you that, you take your boat into. That's a bunch of BS. It's just a couple of gaskets. It's kind of like the distributor. Distributor's the same as a racing distributor, except it doesn't have, so it doesn't have vacuum. There's no vacuum on the carb. There's no vacuum on the intake. It actually has weights or springs for centrifugal advance, but there's a gasket that goes between the cap and the distributor, and that's what makes it marine. If you go and look up, what's that brand? I can't think of it. But I've gone in and I've actually ordered a marine distributor, got the serial number, cross-referenced it, and lo and behold, it was the same part as the car distributor. Again, just missed in the gasket. So, I mean, if you go and get a new distributor cap, you get the gasket with it. So you might as well just buy the auto one and then buy another distributor cap with that gasket, and now lo and behold, you have a marine one and $100 less. Let's see, what else did we do? I think that's pretty much it for modifications for the starter in this thing. We'll be putting this back in and testing her here hopefully tomorrow or the next day, and I will post another video. It is unfortunately a two-man job because these transmissions on the back of these Volvo engines, they've got this nice big washer, and then they got the keyway. The keyway you set in, there's a drive line in there, and the out drive on the outside, you kind of got to have somebody hold that up to fit in here. Now I'm being told that the bearings in here, to make sure you replace those bearings when you take this apart, especially on engines that have quite a few hours on them. Now this here drive actually only has 200 hours on it, so we're not gonna change the bearings right now. But if we do get to a bearings job one time, I will show you how I did that. All right, guys, have a good night, day, morning, whenever you watch this. Later.